Hello everyone. Tonight I'm talking about a particular personality profiling test which is called the Big Five, and it happens to be the one that psychologists like the most, and because they regard it as the most accurate. It has been clinically proven to be the most accurate. Now, a person who talks a lot about that is Jordan Peterson, so I'd recommend you listen to uh, his seminars and watch his videos on YouTube, maybe for a bit of a more detailed aspect about it from a psychologist. But what I want to talk about here is how it relates to the dark triad and the light triad, and why do you want to know about that? As I've mentioned before, um, this is part of a course called the Individuation course, and this is this is the fourth video I'm doing on that process. And I've already mentioned self-awareness, video one. I've mentioned um, okay, there was self-awareness. There was the timeline, which was looking at your 7-year periods of your life, and there was the uh, aspirations, which is related to goal setting. So, with all that, you may be a different personality. So, your personality does play a big part. And why I call it nature is because it's human nature, and also because I happen to like nature. So, it's very interesting to be studying human nature because it's also part of the world that we live in, that you really need to know that. And people have a tendency, if they don't really know about human nature, to assume that everyone is very much like them, which is really not true. So the ocean test, or the Big Five, which stands for the OCEAN, which is openness to experience, uh, conscientiousness, extroversion, uh, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Okay, um, so each of those everyone possesses to a certain extent. Now, you may be on the top of the scale, or you may be very low down at the bottom of the scale, which makes it an easier test to really decipher than something like the MBTI, which I have also studied in greater detail with all its cognitive functions, and maybe worth doing another video on, but it's best to focus on one test at a time so as not to be confused by everything all at once. But the reason why the ocean test is one which is important to know is that it relates to the traits of the dark triad and of the light triad. And you may not have heard of the dark triad. The dark triad is uh, it consists of narcissism, Machiavellianism. Am I even saying that correctly? Okay, I just know that it's the type that I don't really want to come across. Okay, and but it's after a book called The Prince by Machiavelli. He's the one who wrote it, and yeah, I think it was about him. So I don't think he was such a great person, but anyway, he brought it into being. And okay, and then there's psychopathy, which are psychopaths. Now, I used to think that psychopaths were very rare, but in fact, they are living amongst us, and many people are narcissistic as well. In fact, a rising number of people are narcissistic in this day and age for various reasons. So it's important to recognize a personality type and be able to relate to them accordingly, or be able to hold your own among, with them, particularly if you are a person who may have light triad traits instead, which means that which basically you're empathic, and you believe in, you see individuals for what they are, for people with great potential, and you you believe in the human good rather than you'd rather work towards the human good than rather than towards evil. But unfortunately, not everyone is like that. So when we have the Big Five test, uh, you you actually can do it online, and there are three traits in there which you need to be aware that if you have a high percentage of them, that or your percentage when you do the test in these three traits is high, um, you need to be aware that you don't throw your pearls before swine, as I've mentioned before. You don't. You know that you are vulnerable to being a target to manipulators, and so the traits that I'm talking about are um, the first one, which is openness to experience. Because if you're an open person and you're curious and you open to the opinions of others and you can actually lose yourself in that openness. And although it's a wonderful trait to have because it makes you curious and it makes you um, love life more, and it takes you out of yourself and into discovering new things, but you just need to apply it properly, and just be aware that people could take advantage of that if you're too trustworthy and you believe everything that you're told. So okay, so that's about openness, and the next one would be okay, conscientiousness. So if you're conscientious, obviously you're hardworking, you work with systems, you're organized, you're orderly, you're neat. That's a person high in conscientiousness. But people who are not like that, they have less a need for perfectionism, and they maybe can um, take advantage of your need to just be right all the time and to do the right thing, and to uh, and your hard work as well. If you want to do things right, that's conscientiousness, and again, it's a wonderful trait to have. But you also need to be able to manage that correctly with people who may be in the dark triad. So okay, and then extroversion. So when you look at narcissists and people like that, you get extroverted ones and you get introverted ones. But extroversion, okay, your overt one, and you can see who they are, but the introverted ones are probably more dangerous because they present as a person who's vulnerable and a person who's you even feel sorry for them because they might even be socially awkward, and you don't see them as a threat as much as you can see a person who's very maybe charismatic and very sort of out there and very grandiose. You can see them as more uh, at least you can see who they are. So introversion and introverts are quite difficult to read sometimes, because they everything is inside. I mean, I'm an introvert as well, but um, not everyone who's introverted, if you're an introvert, is a good person. So you must realize that. Don't think they're like you. Um, okay, so introversion, all right. Extroversion, okay. And then the agreeableness. I think I have mentioned this before, that if you're highly agreeable, you really need to um, be careful and maybe become a bit less agreeable. It's a good trait, but on the other hand, you need to assert your boundaries sometimes because otherwise you can really be taken advantage of. Um, and then there's disagreeableness where people just want to fight and argue the whole time. And personally, I would avoid those people, but you also need to stand up to those people if they are in the midst of you and you have to be dealing with them. You need to be able to handle them. And the best way, if you're an introvert person, if you're a calm person, if you're a stoic person, is to actually be calm in the midst uh, of their chaos. Um, so agreeableness has many nuances to it, and so do these others. If you do the test online, there are going to be a few subsections which you need to look at as well, but I'm not going to go into that today. Um, and also, I would recommend that you listen to people like Jordan Peterson and people who are trained psychologists in these areas. Um, so agreeableness, and then there's neuroticism. So the the introverted narcissist who is called also known as a covert narcissist or vulnerable narcissist, they can be very neurotic in that they're depressed and they're anxious and you feel sorry for them. And yeah, and on the other side of it, it's people who are very emotional, and that could include anger. So you could find a very and they express it through passive aggression, but then again you could find the overt ones which are expressing it through just out yeah, they're sort of more um, sort of overtly aggressive and angry. I mean, we all get angry at times. It's normal to get angry. In fact, some of us who are hyper agreeable need to be angry more often. But yeah, so I think if you're a traumatized person, sometimes you come across as neurotic, but it may not be your personality to be neurotic, but it depends on your situation that you're in. So yeah, so I mean, even calm people can come across as neurotic, but that's because of their circumstances. It's not then naturally who they are. It depends on, but if you, in every single circumstance you're reacting, then you would fit into high neuroticism. So those traits, the ocean traits, are they to me it's the simplest personality test, but again there are nuances to it, and they're different sections, and they're um, different aspects of each of the five. Um, yeah. So okay. So those of us who are calm and stoic, we tend to pause, and I think someone who's neurotic and someone who's sort of very hyper and very extroverted wants us to talk very quickly, but I'm a person who talks very slowly. So, um, that's the basic personality that I won't really stop talking slowly, which in some ways it's a good thing. In other ways, it really makes people impatient. So, impatience is also part of neuroticism. So when we look at the dark triad, okay, this is what we really need to know when we're in the individuation course. And if we are an empathic person trying to, or a person who's kind of lost themselves in, um, with a person, with someone who may be a narcissist or maybe uh, sort of too sort of extroverted for us that they drown us completely and we um, our personality just cannot shine through. Um, now I've lost my train of thought. Gosh, okay. So we need to really know about basic basics about psychopaths. You know, I'm been quite a naive person in my life, and once, and I mean, I haven't noticed people's eyes very much until recently, and maybe about 10 or more years ago, my daughter brought a friend to a camp, or yeah, it was a camp that we went on as a family. Well, it was a camp in a chalet, okay, but anyway, and this friend, she was a bad influence, and I looked into her eyes, and they were dead. They just stared at me, and that's the first time I realized that some people are just not there. You know, well, there was like a blankness in her eyes, and that scared me very much. And since I've been studying about psychopathy, and out of necessity had to study narcissism, and actually saw it again in other people's eyes, um, it made me realize that you can actually tell a lot by people's eyes. And but it's something I didn't really notice before I've actually been, I don't know what it is, but you reach a stage where you become very much more discerning about people, and very much you can read them a bit more than you used to, because when you are drowning in your own stuff, then it's very difficult to really see others for what they are, because you have your own insecurities and you're so focused on yourself. So the thing is to be able to read other people, and know when, and pick up when someone is not quite there, or may sort of give off an evil vibe, and take notice of it. Don't, because I've noticed before, and then I said to myself, no. I actually condemned myself for thinking that. It was also when one of our top leaders in the business, I could feel this evil vibe, but I kept on second guessing myself and saying, no, he's so popular with people. How can that be? How can you say such a thing? But I don't do that anymore. I listen to what I have to say about them, what my intuition has to say about them. Um, so it does help to know what your traits are. And yes, as you probably guessed, I was, I am still high in agreeableness, but I tend to control it a bit more, or be able to maybe hold it back a bit more in certain circumstances, and put myself into those uncomfortable positions where I have to stand up for myself, and I have to be a bit disagreeable. I will do it, because when I was in my relationship, I was not like that, and also with my parents, because I had a very sort of domineering mother. So I didn't. I lost all my disagreeableness, and now I hope that I'm getting it back. I still got a way to go, and I don't want to be entirely disagreeable, but I am gaining back what's my healthy level of disagreeableness. And also for being open, I'm still very open, but I'm also um, wary of my surroundings, um, and when you're too open, you can get yourself into danger. But yes, I do. I am curious, and I regard that as a wonderful trait. And as far as conscientiousness goes, wow, I mean, you can be so conscientious that you too perfectionistic, and you can be so conscientious. You must pick what you're conscientious about as well. You can be conscientious about things that really get you nowhere and want to do it perfectly. Um, and but all in all, it's a good trait to be conscientious, but also you need to allow yourself to relax a bit and pick, what you're really going to work hard at. And as far as introversion, extroversion goes, uh, well, I think if you're an introvert, you do become comfortable eventually with being an introvert. But I think when you're younger, you kind of even think that maybe something's wrong with you. Why are you not so social? Why do you not like groups? But when you realize that that's your personality, you begin to relax and you begin to enjoy what you enjoy. And as far as neuroticism goes, I think um, it's it's very much the energy of the people you're around. I'm not a neurotic person naturally, but put me in a room with angry people or depressed or sad people, and I will pick up that vibe very easily. And that's why another reason why I like to be one on one with someone and relating to them on a deeper level. So okay, this has been again about my experience, but the main point that you need to take away here is that there is such a thing as a dark triad, and not everyone's the same. And there are more psychopaths out there than you think. There are a lot of narcissists out there, Machiavellian as well. That's um, yeah. Um, the difference between a narcissist and a psychopath is that a narcissist cares very much about what people think and will put on a false persona to impress people. A psychopath doesn't care. They really don't care what people think, but still they can put on the persona to become successful and to be a success in business and whatever. But they don't really care about people's feelings at all, or what they think of them. And the Machiavellian person as well, they just have a strategy and they have a goal and they will pursue that no matter what. Whatever people get in the way, they will find a way to get rid of them if they have to. So or bypass them, or if they want a position at work, they will do anything to get that position, for example. And um, they tend to be very, very into money and power, which also applies to narcissists and to psychopaths. Uh, yeah. So that's the dark triad. And I think they might be adding some more to the triad, but I think you should listen to the psychologists on that. I also listen to Dr. Grundy quite a lot. Um, he is also a YouTuber, and because he talks about cases where you know these strange things happened. Um, so if you're a beautiful light triad person, continue being so, but just be educated that there is a dark triad that is trying to oppose you, that sees you like blood in the water when they come across you, because that's what I was. I was blood in the water for people because they could really read me so quickly, but I could not read myself because I did not realize that I was to that extent a person that was a target. Um, yeah, so we're on the topic of individuation, and I must say that it's not the easiest topic or the best topic that I'd like to talk about, but it's where I'm starting off my videos, and I will go on to other topics afterwards. But I'm finishing this particular series, which I started about a year ago, and hopefully it can help someone. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.